Hello friends, have a good time. We are at your service with Shabnameh. Strangely enough, and with incredible speed, the world is moving in a direction that many would like to know where it ends. I would like to think about this together. That's, sir, the issues, especially what will be the future order of the world. How should we look? How much of what we say is optimistic? The things we are saying are just to be happy. We went through the blackness that is said in the West, we searched, we found 3 to 4 things according to our opinion, and I say these are the facts. How much is it like this? And how real is it? It is based on the truth. The world really it understands this way. I would like you to think about this once. Think about these things a little bit longer, and see how we should see the future of the world, and based on the understanding we find, where should we stand? I have prepared a report for you, from a famous American philosopher and theorist. These talks are very important. What I will present to you tonight is very important. But, I wish faces like Sadej Zabakalam and people like this, they would get a chance to read this report once. Let's check once and see what is said in this. Sir, if you really like something called Iran, think based on what is written here, how should you see the issues? If you don't like the country, well, nothing more. The assignment is clear. Let's go and read the report together. Let's see what points were said. Let's talk about the very important things said at the end of the report. Then, first, there is a report about the battle in Ukraine, which we will definitely review together if the opportunity allows us to do so. Noam Chomsky raises a point. This point is exactly what Ayatollah Khamenei said more than a year ago, when the war in Ukraine started, he raised. And I have never seen anyone in the world's leaders dare to say such a thing in such a way. What Noam Chomsky has proposed is that an agreement is reached between George W. Bush and Mikhail Gorbachev, the former leader of the United States and the Soviet Union, on NATO. That the summary of this agreement is that, you don't expand NATO, its borders, its walls, to the east, and towards the borders of Russia. Do not come towards us. If they want to come towards us, we consider this a threat to our national security. We have no choice but to engage in confrontation. One point is said here, this point is very ponderable. He says, what is happening is that America remains committed to this. But the successors of George Bush did not remain faithful to this agreement, and violated it. Indirectly, he is saying what happened today in Ukraine, and the blood that was shed, and the war that started, it wasn't the Russians who initiated it, the Russians did not initiate it. I never dared. Let me quickly tell you that we have been talking about the Ukraine issue for a year and a half. Why? Because I was always afraid of being accused of supporting the East. Why lie? I'm always afraid of someone trying to slander us like that. That's why I never said it quickly. Noam Chomsky is saying this now. Look, among the leaders of the world, someone is found and said, this war that happened is the fault of America. Because, you are developing your borders towards this country. And this country, you made an agreement with it before. In this agreement that has been reached, you said that I will not do this. So you are the initiator of this war. The leader of Iran proposed this. The Americans themselves are saying. Philosophers are saying this. Now some friends may have a question. Who said that now? And let's admit that he is right. Does it matter at all? Is this the leader of Iran's words important? But I will simplify for you. This story happened to us in a different way. It has happened many times. They came to an agreement with us, and hid under the agreement. In order to address the fact that today's bloody war, which has involved a nation, 20% of the country was separated, and it has had an effect on the surrounding countries as well. This incident goes back to an agreement in 1991, which the Americans put under their feet. This happened because of the agreement they violated. Sir, I had the right to shout all these years and say that such a country is not trustworthy. I had the right to say that I don't want to cooperate with this. I had the right to have this model of behavior. An example of the behavior they have done in these years, according to their own experts and their own philosophers, has started a war in Europe, which now goes on to say, this was for the benefit of America. The same war he started, he knew it would happen like this. He did this for his benefit. Why? I will tell. Started a war. Affected by his behavior with that agreement, we still see its effects. Let's read the rest of the report together. A point is raised in the continuation of Noam Chomsky's speech, which is very important in my opinion. They ask it about China. They say, Does it seem possible that China will become a leader in the world in the future? Then he says, now China is the leader. It is not necessary to talk about whether he will be a leader in the future or not. Do you know on what basis he says this? It refers to the agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia, despite all the discussions that exist. He says, the agreement that Saudi Arabia, as America's ally, made with America's main enemy in the region. It was done in the presence of China, America's rival. He says, when we look at this, we can understand, can this now play the role of leadership for the world? And it is playing. The point I want to tell you is this. An agreement 2 to 3 months ago between Iran and Saudi Arabia, in this way, is out of the understanding of the decision-makers in America. And this is very thought-provoking. Next, they ask about the West Asian region. Sir, in what way are these confrontations that we have in our region important? He says, these events that are happening, show that America has declined in West Asia. Whereas, 80 years ago, he took over here from Britain, took the place of England, and while it has done this, here it has fallen. Sir, don't think that colonialism, in our region, or in other places, if it is active, if it is playing a role, it will be avoided so easily. No. He says, England has done this somewhere. America tried to do this for 80 years, now it has reached its decline in this region. These points that were raised are important for this reason. That we are talking about a region. Westerners, despite everything, have been trying to be here for over 80 years. They are all trying to dominate here. The fight with Iran is about this. Many of our friends today, those who oppose the government, some of them say, Sir, we are on the side of a government, it is a dictator, etc. Tell me one of the actions of this government, the worst of which has not happened in Saudi Arabia or in Western countries at all. Whatever you say, sir, you know it yourself. Whatever you say now, I can tell you a worse example that happened in America or in Europe. In Saudi Arabia, no matter how much you say it happened. Do you know why I say this? I don't want to say that others are worse than us, or that we are better than others. I want to say, in general, the essence of the fight is something else. It needs control here. It needs to be versatile here. It needs that no one can talk about his words here. It wants an example like Syria to happen in the whole region. The Takfiris on this side, the Kurdish forces on the other side, the Turkish forces on the other side, and the Syrian government forces on this side, the forces on this side. Everything is broken. In the broken order, some people left and got in touch with America. It himself has brought his bases with 900 troops. They are working on the oil centers of Syria. This is his wish for the region. That we break apart. That it can dominate. He says, after 80 years now, America, which was supposed to do this work in this region, has declined. And this decline does not only mean the destruction of the previous goals in this region. This decline means that they had a dispute with Iran. Their comrades in the region came and stood by Iran. This means, a terrible failure, after 80 years of domination over our region, for the colonialists. Let's go and read the rest of it together. 2 points are raised here. These 2 points are extremely important. The first point. He asks Noam Chomsky, he says, what do you think the next world order will look like? When the decline of America was discussed, many people said, power will come to the East, and China will become a superpower. It is not necessarily like this. Why should China become a superpower? There can also be a multipolar system. Although, even now, some of the discussions that are raised are that in the multipolar system, the space may go in one direction, one will reach this conclusion, one will swallow that one. In fact, Henry Kissinger mentioned the same thing in the recent article that we read. And he said, you should hope that the world can withstand a multipolar system. But if we had several superpowers at the same time and they couldn't cope with each other, you must have become strong enough to swallow them. Now I have something else to say. This looks at the problem from a different angle. Then he says something like, if we want to consider it, then I understand why it is important for America to keep the war in Ukraine burning. I want to read to you from the text. Noam Chomsky, referring to the complexity of predicting the next world order, said, the main options of a system. He says, it has 2 modes. A multipolar system based on the United Nations. There are several leaders, several powers in the world, but they are committed to the United Nations. In the end, he has to speak somewhere. He says, there is another possibility, and that is the possibility of a unipolar law-based system. The next world order. centered on the United States. Wow. Now that you said it is declining. This is the fight at all. This is what we are talking about. I told you in the report about artificial intelligence. They say, the next 18 months of the world are very fateful. If the West is able to implement the things it has in mind in the field of artificial intelligence and the plans it has, in mastering this issue, maybe he can have a way to stay in power in the world. When he comes back, he says, on the one hand, it is possible for a world to become multipolar. On the one hand, it may be a unipolar world centered on America. Sir, what you said is declining. Yes. No wonder one person does not lose control over the world. All these years, it has some 1,000 nuclear warheads. It has satellites all over the world. It made a definition for himself of a world order. You have condemned everyone to be associated with that order. Everyone who is not associated with that order has had a challenge with it. I mean, free, let go of this game. There can be no such thing at all. It can't be anything like that at all. He will definitely try to stay in power. The Ukraine issue is also related to this, I will tell you. Keep these in the corner of your mind. One of them is that a multipolar order is formed. Another possibility is that a unipolar law-oriented order should take place. That, he says, law-oriented, has a point. A unipolar law-based order should be formed, where America sets its rules, and as we have seen, it bypasses them whenever it wants. Sir, do you understand what happened? I mastered artificial intelligence. I was able to master everything in the world through him. Moreover, in China, regarding the domination of humans, there are now videos and pictures that are very scary. A lot of it is like slavery. I want to say that in different parts of the world, they are working on this domain with different goals, motivations, and views. And don't you think that anything is too unlikely, or too far away? What is he talking about here? He says, one of the possibilities is that an order will be formed, centered on America, which will be legal. Why should the order that wants to be formed based on America be legal? In order to come and say that these things must be observed in the world. That our world does not fall apart. After I set the rules myself, I told all of you to follow them. Then let me tell you, for example, I must be able to pass through it in some places. Do not take me too seriously now. Did you notice what happened? The law comes to bind the hands and feet of others, to act on others, and not to act wherever it wants. This is not my word. This thing, in the text of their talks, comes clearly. Keep these in the corner of your mind. Let's examine the issue of Ukraine together. One point here is very thought-provoking. He says that, if Europe wants to avoid decline in the future, there is only one way. The same curses that Macron received, because of what he said after China. I said, these words are the first words of the Iranian Revolution. This unfortunate has understood something, because many people now consider the issue of the beginning of the Iranian Revolution. They say, sir, a revolution is expensive. No one should make a revolution. Well done. God's mercy on your parents. At all, this is the most correct word. The most expensive event in a country is a revolution. But if you went to the same direction as Bahrain, which was yours, you would be more powerful, you would also buy the best weapons. They took every part of the country they wanted. You couldn't do anything, at this stage, you just need to change the rails. At all, you have no choice but to change the rail. Otherwise, you will be digested. We will be digested in the facts. I told you. Macron's speech is now like the Iranian Revolution. Why? Because he feels that he is being removed from the facts of the world. Noam Chomsky's speech is very strange. He says, if Europe decides to remain in the system of American domination, it will probably suffer from instability. That is, he says, he will perish, he must distance himself from America. Now, a question. If you were America and understand that, between its thinkers, realizing that Europe must distance itself from America, you also understand that Europe should distance itself from you. Because he will perish if he stays with you. France is also shouting fast. He says, 1 year later, we should go and think about independence from America. Maybe we can't. If America finds out something like this, what should it do? I will read the end of Noam Chomsky's speech for you. One thing was very interesting to me, which did not mention these things in this material. But his talks are so continuous, that if you take a look around, we will understand that the hidden message is what I told you. These texts that I read were his own words. I tried to explain it. I think with these explanations, it became clear that how different the story is from what it seems. Let's listen to the end of his speech. Let's see, what are they doing with the Europeans who are their allies and friends? With what purpose, he says. Many people of the world want the first one. What is he talking about? Those two rules we mentioned. One should be a multipolar order with the United Nations as the center. The nations should come, sit together, be in harmony. He says, many people in the world want the first one. The second order. What is the second order? The one in which America is the center. The second regularity is accepted in English-speaking countries, Europe, Japan and some other countries. Other countries also want the second regularity. Now, a question. Europe and the rest want the second regularity, that is, they want it to be centered on America, with multiple poles, and they are having problems. Okay. They will decline with America. They understand this too. What should America do to keep them in this? A Ukrainian war was a gift to America. To mediate Europe with its financial aid, to make these countries demand more and more unipolar rule-based law. Did you understand what happened? Did the Russians or the Americans do the war in Ukraine? He explained, he said, first, America came and left the game so that Russia would have to protest. Okay. Why did he do this? Because it will make a calculation error and make a mistake. Okay. Forced the war on the Russians. It says based on what it says. It imposed the war to achieve what? It imposed the war, it will be reset when the world is in order. Saudi Arabia is moving towards Iran, that one is moving towards so-and-so, the UAE has closed its business with so-and-so, and France is in hurried. In such a situation, he should say, look, two orders can rule the world. One is, go sit down with China, Russia, Iran, etc. Shake your head, endure a world, experience it, I have no problem with this. And regularity can be the order I am saying. See the war in Ukraine. The ideal is to stand next to me, and accept my unipolar order, so that the calamity of it can reach all of you from the fire that is kindled next to your ear. Find liberation, let's catch this ball of fire again when we unite, throw it in West Asia, and breathe a sigh of relief. Sir, the story is like this. In the world we are talking about, the story is like this. They see the issues in this way. Darkness wants to rule the world. It has involved the nations as well. It attacked the cultures like the Mongols. And people in different parts of the world no longer have a relationship with their old culture, their new generation. Their children are involved in other things. Look today. Half of them, who are young and teenagers, live on Instagram with a different thinking. They do not understand the issues of the day at all. He can't understand because he wants everyone to be in their own way. Be involved in themselves. Hit them in the head. So that he can keep the darkness in the world. Darkness must be removed, and light must reign. We had a seat in this world. Iran, kept this seat for 5,000 years. They crushed me. But I will take back my seat, I will go back to my place in this world. And those who have talked to the nations from a higher position these years, they will come to the conclusion that he should look at others and the world in an equal position. We are moving in a strange direction. I think that's enough. I don't have any other points. If you have any points, please send them in the form of a message. It will help this report to be more complete with your message. Dear friends, I am very sincere, I have a lot of devotion, have a good time.